Hello, good morning. Welcome in. Why is Huddie's face messed up? Good morning. Welcome into another episode of Good Morning Nasdaq right here on the Clover Trading YouTube channel. It is the 16th day of December, year of our Lord 2024. Halfway through the last month of the year, we are inching closer to Christmas. We're inching closer to the new year. And before we know it, we'll be saying year of our Lord 2025, which is awesome, amazing, and I hope I get there. How are we doing this morning, Huddie? We're joined by Mr. Hudson in the beautiful New York
Good.
City.
We're ready to get back to business. The week is young, the month is mid, and the year is coming to a close. So good weekend, good time off, and now it's time to get back to business. Who's ready?
Who's ready? Looks like Wayne is ready. Matthew is ready. Ty, Chris, B, Uros, Aaron. Good morning. Good morning. Hope you guys had a great weekend. Spent some time with friends, family on a golf course if you live in a place like that. Hunting if you live in a place like that. Hope you just enjoyed yourself and are ready back to attack the markets. Last week, kind of up and down. We had our all-day webinar. I think Kyle was red. I was red. Huddy clicked a lot less buttons.
And was green.
So hopefully this week has some opportunities. So far this morning on the gap scan, looking like one decent runner in low price land. We'll talk about that one. And not too much else really going on there. I think we finished last week with no gappers, didn't we? Was Friday's episode. Yeah. So a little streak here of a lot less. But what goes down must go up is what we always say, right?
And what goes up must come down.
Exactly. So make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel. We'll be live every day the market is open, which is Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday of this week. Wednesday will be a double feature at 9:15 a.m. live trading and 7 p.m. Wine Wednesday. Unfortunately, there will be no raffle on Wednesday, but we still hope you guys tune in for some good, entertaining commentary on the stock market, all things stock market. Here on Good Morning Nasdaq, we like to talk about the biggest gappers of the day in small cap land, talk about their dilution, share structure, news, catalyst, flotation devices, and their daily chart, and let you know where our bias lies. We got one of those today we're going to talk about. How does that sound, Mr. Hudson?
Let's talk about it.
Let's talk about it. Let's talk about stocks, baby. I just made that up. Like that one?
Let's talk about you and me.
Okay, you're picking up what I'm putting down, aren't you?
I got you.
Huddy usually gets me. I could never get Kyle to sing something back to me. Could you imagine that? He might do his little, but that's it. All right, WBUY, or as we like to call it, we buy, a stock we've seen before. 49 million.
Otherwise known as we sell sometimes.
It is not. There is a little meme associated with it. We'll talk about that when we get to said daily chart. Let's not spoil anything, Huddy. We buy global. From now, right now, at this moment in time, it's we buy. Okay. Internet retail company with a 49.28 million float. Their mission is to make social shopping a new lifestyle for consumers. I would say that is already the case. 1 hour ago, they advanced to their next phase of NVIDIA's AI accelerator program. Gosh, so it's like a course you just got to keep accelerating through. I'm gotta read it a little bit. So it looks like there's the word blockchain in there, NVIDIA, AI. I don't see the trifecta, so I don't think this is KULR special. But okay, so not like life-changing news, but it says the word NVIDIA in it, which isn't been the hottest stock, has it? Let me see. It's just kind of going sideways in a safe zone, right? Talk to me, dilution-wise. We've looked at this one before. Not any cash, negative 0.8 months of cash on hand. Current cash is negative 0.8, yeah. What do we got going on?
The cash need is high. Cash need is high, and that's something to definitely pick up on. I mean, every time this thing, not to get to the daily chart, but it seems like they have some type of supply that they can sell onto retail. For sure, we do see that they have a convertible note with the conversion price of 21 cents, 11 million shares left to be converted. So that's, if that's updated, that's kind of a lot. And then they also have a shelf from November 2024. So relatively very recent. Wouldn't be the biggest dilution. They can't raise that much, but they can raise, and the cash need is high. And I think this is a scam.
Huddie thinks it's a scam. They don't have any cash. Pretty decent sized float, but is a lower price stock at 50 mil. News is just kind of bleh. Let's take a look at the daily chart and see what we see. This is definitely a daily chart in small cap land with a little bit of structure here. Obviously, this big, everywhere there is volume. If you look at the bottom part of the chart, that's the days that I'm most interested in. What happens when this stock gets action? What happens when they PR? What happens when they get a catalyst and they start moving? What happens on those days? You can see the biggest one here, the biggest volume day. We have a decent sized gap from the 11s to the 30s. A really good run in the morning before giving it all back and closing at the low of day. We have a little gap, a small little gap, a run, and the same type of thing. Close at low of day. Gap and crap back here in September. Not as much of a spike, but did close near low of day. I think this is why Huddie believes it is much more we sell than we buy, because it has a very difficult time of holding onto its gains. It's not we hold. But maybe a lot of gap and crappers get tricked up with stuff like this because, is it going to spike 100% before fading all day? And maybe they start tripping over themselves. What do you think about this daily chart? I am very anti-bullish. Some would call that bearish. Any stock spiking into major resistance, especially on a big volume day like back here in November, I really just am not interested in the long. You kind of have multiple plays here. You can gap and crap it. If you're long, I guess, what do you call it? Gap and go. Short into resistance. When you have the structure here with resistance overhead and big volume, I think it makes the charts a lot easier to dissect than when we have our random one-day runners. But there's a precedent here of not holding its gains throughout the day.
Yeah, I mean, if they want to bring in 1.5 billion shares of volume again, like I really don't know what it's going to do. That's a lot of volume. I don't know. That's a lot of volume. But when I look at a chart like this, I see just in the past 4 or 5 months, 4 times that it's gapped up and finished at the lows. I don't really know why it would do anything different today. If I really wanted to play off a resistance level, I would draw that line right there at 58 and say, hey, this is going to be a very hard resistance to kind of hold and get over. And if it doesn't get over, I think it's going to fail. I think it's going to, do like it did the last 4 times, which is at some point end up at low of day by close. I don't know how it's going to get there. I don't know how chaotic it'll be until it gets there. I just think that there's high odds that it does get there given its past performance and its dilution. That's in the money.
Yeah, really not bullish on this one. You rarely hear me say, "Oh, I'm really bullish on this day one gapper here in Good Morning Nasdaq." And usually, the more I see, the more I just buy into the bear thesis. With these gap and crappers or just gappers, I guess. But when you have this much resistance overhead, you have such a good history of failing. It's kind of like when I see stocks that have such a history of running and going multiple days. Those are the ones that I am most excited to buy breakouts on, for screen days on, just because I know that they will tend to do the same types of things over and over and over again. We've been trading, me, Kyle, and Huddie for 8 to 9 years. And we've seen a lot of the same stocks over the years where every year we'll see the same we buy, or we'll see the same give me a ticker. Used to be like NKLA or Fannie Mae, and we just knew what to do with those stocks because we know what they do when they close at their highs, when they have 3 green days, whatever it is. And this is one that is proven many, many times that it does not hold its gains. Sometimes it does get a spike going, but I do think as time passes and we run into more prior resistance a lot closer, that it will have a difficulty running. And this gap is quite big too, from the lows sub 20 up into the high 30s, into the 40s. We'll see where we open here in 26 minutes, but this being the top gapper of the day, I do think, the volume already doesn't look like it's mouth-watering compared to days in which it really squeezed out. So we buy global.
Yeah,
Talk to me.
it's very rare that I'm ever bullish on a gapper as well. But I will say the one time, like there are a few times a year that I do say, hey, this has an interesting sector kick to it. And I think that has been my general vibe on LAES this whole time that it's been gapping and running. And it's kind of the next gapper. So I think we can kind of transition into it. We should talk about it a little bit because I think it is in play. I think it is a gapper, the second biggest, maybe third. And I've been slightly bullish. I'm still gonna, if it fits my criteria for a gap and crap, I don't care what I think. I'm still probably gonna play it and take a loss on it, even if I can predict it from a mile away. LAES was one that I kind of had that suspicion for, and I'll tell you guys why. Number one, I hate dollar gappers. I hate when stocks gap around a dollar. So that first time it gapped up, it did gap up straight to a dollar, magically held a buck, and now it's going on a 3 or 4 day run. They do have to be compliant and hold a buck before like the end of the year, or maybe in January is their deadline. So they definitely have incentive there. But why is it running? What is Seals Q Corp? That's what you should all ask yourselves. It is tied to the sector. It is tied to, I think specifically W Key. So WKEY had a big run with its SpaceX launch that they're teasing coming in January, and they're using LAES's technology. So they're kind of correlated in that way. So it is part of the sector. It is one I kind of like don't want to step in front of as a short seller. Again, if it fits my criteria, I will. But there's good reason to be bullish on that one. I think you got a sector, you got a cheap stock, you got a small float, you got tons of volume. You have another stock that's kind of part of the sector that was running. So I see the merit there a lot more than most.
With Lays.
Yeah, I mean, now going into 250, I have no idea what to do. Now we're truly extended. I don't think I'd be buying past the past 3 days.
Yeah, I struggle with Lace from any perspective. Today makes it kind of clear we're already 50% past the breakout level. This is just one that it's a gap happy stock. If you look at the daily chart, its entire run to overextension has been on big gap ups that where the wicks don't even really touch previous day's action. And then besides Friday, which was a day in which I think they did an offering or something, also was a first red day, and then ends up closing up near the breakout level. Today gapping, it looks like a really clean runner if you have after hours on, but once you turn that off, it is just like kind of gap sideways. So we'll see at some point if that trend breaks, because there is a lot of consolidation levels in this chart, and it is one that is on my list. I'm not sure how to go about playing it until it breaks out of that trend. But this is definitely into overextended territory from the 40 cents all the way up towards $3 this morning. That's a LAES Theo. You almost just made me click buttons. How's everyone doing this morning? Let us know over in the live chat. Any tickers you have questions on? We'll be happy to answer questions on those until the quarter of the hour. Any other gappers that you really want to hit, Mr. Hudson? We want to. I see a question.
I really want to hit.
Yeah, that you like super duper califragilogic.
I mean, there's two other gappers today that I don't really want to hit because I don't think they're good. SIDU. This is a horrible stock. So good luck with it. It's in the space sector, so I'm sure it's going to have some type of interest. People are going to want to buy the dip. Good luck. But I think this is like a long-term, like really terrible chart. I've known CDU for years. They have random runs. They reverse split. They dilute. They pump. They reverse split. They dilute. So, space is hot. They're going to take advantage of that. They're going to try to pump. I don't know how much dilution they have. I can check. Not a lot. But they do need a lot of cash. It's a gapper. It's there.
Yeah, and that's not the fun Sea-Doo either, like the jet ski.
No.
It's kind of like the boring one. Again, top left to bottom right, not an anomaly in small cap land. Gapped up this morning 58%, so not quite the most intriguing one, but it's coming off its lows as well. Let's see.
Willing to, though, what's interesting about the gapping craps is I'm willing to bet, not willing to bet. I would never buy or sell based off this information. But I think you have a better chance of running from a smaller gap up than from a bigger gap up. I think that's what the data lends me to believe. I still think you have to be very good at deciphering which one really has the highest odds. I don't know how to do that, but the smaller the gap up, the better chance it has to run, I think.
Yeah, when I was, at different points in my career trying to figure out how to long day one gappers, I feel like that's what I came across too. Like if you want the most volatility, go to the highest volume one that's up the most on the day. You're going to get the biggest swings in the first 30 minutes. But like whenever you look back on your scanner late at night, back when I used to scan at night, the biggest easy morning spikes were always the ones in the 30%, 40% up on the day. And then they just kind of, either became super volatile or didn't and just kind of morning spiked. But, if you look at your scanner, that is usually the biggest quantity of plays is, from right here, the second one on our list, all the way down is 11% to 60%. It's a lot of stocks to go through, figure out, read, go through the daily chart. So, it's kind of like a quantity versus quality type of game. Do you want to focus on the one that's up the most or the 50 that have the best chance of moving?
And that could be why we just see more of them run from that percent. It's not that they have any higher chance of running. It's just that there are more in that gap range than there are at the 100% plus. So you have more randomized results. But I used to think when I came into the market, like especially in my beginning days, that the bigger the gap up, the stronger the stock. And I do not think that anymore.
You think that less?
I think that less.
Yeah, and I think it's just one of those things like a lot of the patterns that we trade, well, all of them are kind of based around human psychology. And, all the patterns get created because of the way people think, because of the way shorts think, chasers think, where people get involved, where they leave stocks alone. And so a lot of what gappers' strategies are where the most eyes are, where the most volume is, where the most attention is, what has the best catalyst. So I think that's why people flock. And they also just, people flock to stocks like mosquitoes to lights, and the biggest, fanciest, highest flying stock of the day is where the most attention is going to be on the long and short side. Okay. That's all the biggest gappers of the morning. WeBuy is going to be your biggest gapper of the day. Someone asked for Huddie, how well did you do on Cadle last week on the short? Did you stay all the way down on the drop, or did you get out early? The fun thing about trading with all the amazing traders I've met over the years is that I feel like I could do a panel and just put like long hair on me and call me Huddie, and I could answer every question for Huddie. And the same thing for Kyle. Like I could do it in exactly the way they want, based off their criteria, how they trade stocks. And I think that's kind of where you have to get to. I tried to do that with Gertani back in the day too, to start trading like him. Where I could just memorize every word of trading tickers. So I know the answer for this, Huddie, but why don't you tell him?
It didn't fit my criteria. I didn't touch it. And it was sad. But
and
it is what it is.
Even if you did trade it, you wouldn't have covered into that big pull.
No, I would have covered at sub 8.
770s.
Something like that. Yeah. I generally like to hold as long as I can and let it really unwind if it will, and maybe even catch an offering. So I like to stay really patient on the gappers. I think very few of them ever really recover. I mean, yeah, there's some missed gains at the bottom from time to time, and I'm not going to cry over spilt milk. I just want to kind of consistently win instead of consistently make the most amount of money. I don't want to be perfect. I think you're going to drive yourself up a wall if you're trying to be perfect and get every bottom and catch every top. I don't think that's realistic. So you just have to have more of a process, a systematic way of winning. How do you win over and over and over? And how do you, put yourself in situations to have a higher odds win more often than not? And once you have that, kind of nailed down in your strategy, the margin doesn't matter in terms of catching the 5% bottom or 5% bounce off the bottom. I don't really care. But yeah, Cadle just doesn't fit my strategy. I really didn't. Came really close, and I wanted it to. I want to take as many as possible because I think this is more often than not the result. But it has to fit in my basket of high odds situations. And unfortunately, from the data, Cadle does not fit in a high odds basket across the aggregate to fade like that. So, and I don't break rules. I know that there's going to, I've taken 250 of these things this year, right? So it's I don't need to break the rules to be a part of any individual specific one because of whatever reasons or feelings it gives me. I just know that if I follow the data, I'll make X amount of money in theory. In theory, my results will be like the paper. Obviously, it's not perfect, but there's human error. But I if it doesn't fit my criteria, I just kind of stay away from it, even if it does look like a great fader. I also missed SONN. Like last week or 2 weeks ago was a really annoying week because there was so many that did fade really well, and I just they didn't fit my criteria. SONN was the other one. Both times this one has dunked like this. I didn't have an entry. It sucks, but I don't need to have an entry on this is my point. I'm still going to hit 250 other ones of these, and there's plenty of these that will happen. So it sucks in the moment when I miss them, but I think about the data and not about the independent.
Yeah, those are some dirty looking red candles.
They're so dirty.
So dirty. Someone says RKDA holding well, maybe breaks out soon. Goodness gracious. No. Oh gosh. It's a no for me, dog. Well. Yeah, it's still over 60% away from its highs. It had one day of a gap and crap, and then just going sideways on less than 200K shares a day. These are the type of charts I really feel like, for me, it really helped to start deleting this stuff. You will find out about this long before it breaks out, if it's breaking out. It's kind of the way my mind always says, like, what do I have to personally keep on my list so that way I can
run
have
70%.
an edge? Yeah, like, and so for my brain, it's, every stock that someone else is going to tell me about before something happens, or if I could set price alerts or whatever, like, I don't want to be watching that stuff, or else I feel like that's when you take 2 losses in a row, and then this is the stock you go to and go, all right, it's tight range, let me just buy and hold. That's where the ideas come from. And so it's like, this has been nowhere near my list. I don't think I even have it on a list. But
let's think about this, right? Like, maybe it's a good case point. Someone's saying RKDA breakout. Okay, so the stock is at $6 right now, and the breakout level, as far as I'm concerned, is 10.25. Let's just call it that. So it's got to run 60 something percent to even get there in the first place. So I don't think the person's like, oh, like, I want to buy the breakout. I think they're saying like, oh, this is going to break out and I want to front run it because there's no way to say this is a breakout right now at $6. It's so maybe this person is thinking, okay, there's a 4-day period where it consolidated under 650. So now they're shifting what a breakout might mean in their mind, and they're saying, okay, 650 is the breakout level because that's where we consolidated for a couple of days, and if we get over that consolidation, it's quote unquote a breakout. Although we're going to ignore the fact that there's overhead resistance from 645 to 1025. Okay, maybe, right? That already sounds pretty weak to me. And then I look at the volume, and it's trading 130,000 shares on the day. So it's like, who would actually want to buy that? You don't know what the stock does. It's not in a sector. It's 50% off the highs. It's got no volume. It's got a very unclear level right above. It has no past history of actually running. Why would this break out? And why would I want to be early? Or why would I want to even be in it at all? Like, I don't understand the point. I don't understand it. When you think of it like that, it's really hard to want to even look at this chart.
Yeah, I think it's always good to build some sort of thesis, right? Even if you're wrong, build an idea. Is there a reason shorts would cover? Is there a reason shorts would be in? Is there an upcoming catalyst? Is there enough volume that's churning while it's consolidating that makes you think, oh, there's a lot of attention here still? Or is this just a day one gapper that we talked about one day on Good Morning Nasdaq that no one has said a word about since? And if that's the case, it's probably needs to go into the basket of do something, and then I'll start watching you again. And if it's always from that perspective of wait for the stock to do something before I do something, trading becomes a lot easier, and you usually have the right stocks on your watch list or the right stocks in front of you.
I think when I say when I say a stock is holding up well, I feel like I'm thinking like a multi-day runner that comes down, creates a higher low base, and continues to trade volume, and had maybe a catalyst that I liked that got it on a multi-day run. Something like UMAC the other week, UMAC, where it's like we go on a run from like the $2-3 area. We top out at 23. 4 days later, it drops 50%, creates a base. That, President Trump Jr., son, whatever, is joining the board. And like, maybe it's forming a base and a higher low, and volume can come back. And it's having a first green day and a gap up now. Like, that's a better chart build. I still don't really want to play that, but that's a better chart build than RKDA. Just comparing kind of the same thought process. And I'm still not calling UMAC a breakout.
No, it still goes into like a C- basket, but RKDA is like D-.
RKDA is not even in the basket.
It's nowhere near my list. I keep a lot of stocks on my list that are a little optimistic. Like maybe there'll be a play on it soon. RKDA wouldn't for me. Doesn't mean it can't for you. It seems like whenever I bash a stock, the next morning it's like 200% run. But not for me. All right, everybody. Thank you guys for being here. We'll be live back at it tomorrow, 8:45 a.m. We're going to head on over to the Clover room. We'll get that webinar schedule out to you guys midday here today as well. If you ever want to join us for those, you can get yourself 4-leaf over at clovertrain.io. Looks like it's going to be a slow morning for Huddie. We'll take a look at the AI stocks here in a second when I head downstairs. We'll see you guys tomorrow morning. Thank you for being here. Thank you for hitting the like button, being subscribed, and we'll see you tomorrow. Have a wonderful, wonderful day, everybody.